Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of your breakfast show Leadership Television inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred Ugobo, your host on the program. On today's show, we are looking at front headline stories of some select national newspapers, and of course, that includes Nigeria's most influential leadership. Leadership's leading story today on Wednesday, November 27, 2024 says terrorism like father, President Itno takes battle to Lake Chad, joins troops to launch weeks of offensive against Boko Haram, insists attack on Bohana, Bakaram won't happen again. Leading story on leadership. Terrorism like father, President Itno takes battle to Lake Chad, joins troops to launch weeks of offensive against Boko Haram, insists attack on Bohana, Bakaram won't happen again. And underneath that, we have a picture of the managing director of Port Harcourt Refining Company, PHROC Limited, as Ibrahim Modi Onoja, as he presents sample of petroleum products to the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL, Meli Kyari, during the commissioning of the PHRC, that is Port Harcourt Refining Company, and product trucker ceremony at the refinery in Port Harcourt yesterday. This picture also graces the cover of other papers we have on our lineup this Wednesday. Other stories on the cover of Leadership: Tinubu off to France for state visit. After 20 years, Port Harcourt refinery commences operation. Yahaya Bello submits self to EFCC ahead of arraignment. AMGA 2024 Armed Forces dominate shooting, tennis. And that takes us to the stories gradually towards the masthead. President says, I share special moments with Atiku in APC. Of course, this is in relation to Atiku's birthday. President Bola Tinubu says, I share special moments with Atiku in APC. And on the business boss of leadership, Mba crashes recurrent expenditure to 14%, presents 971 billion naira budget. Governor Mba is the governor of Enugu State. Governor Peter Mba crashes recurrent expenditure to 14%, presents 971 billion naira budget. Education gets 33.2% for our second year. Above the masthead of leadership, CBN tightens interest rates to curb persistent price surge. CBN tightens interest rates to curb persistent price surge. From that, we move to the page 3 of leadership, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on Enforced Disability Act 2018. Enforced Disability Act 2018. In 2018, Nigeria took a historic step toward inclusion and equality by enacting the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act. One key provision required public institutions to reserve at least 5% of their employment opportunities for persons living with disabilities, that is PLWDs. Despite this epoch-making legislation, its implementation has been far from satisfactory, leaving millions of Nigerians with disabilities to face persistent unemployment and systemic marginalization. That is excerpts from the stand today on leadership, Enforced Disability Act 2018. From our stand, we move to the back page of leadership, where we have Wednesday column with Olufunke Baruwa. Today's column is on 30 years after Beijing. Let's talk about gender-based violence. 30 years after Beijing, let's talk about gender-based violence. And in quote, the crisis of gender-based violence is urgent. The killing of women and girls is on the rise, and it is happening in every country and region of the world. This killing of women, this femicide must stop. Quote from Wednesday column with Olufunke Baruwa. 30 years after Beijing, let's talk about gender-based violence. It's on that note we conclude review of front headline stories today, the editorial and the back page on Leadership newspaper. For more, log on to the website of Leadership, www.leadership.ng. From leadership, we move to the next paper we have on our menu, and that is The Guardian. Cautious optimism over cheaper fuel as Port Harcourt refinery creates rivalry. The story runs on page 6 of The Guardian. Cautious optimism over cheaper fuel as Port Harcourt refinery creates rivalry. In quote, NNPC says the refinery will produce trade-run gasoline, naphtha, which will thereafter be blended into 1.4 million litres of PMS. It will produce 900,000 litres of kerosene, 1.5 million litres of diesel, and 2.1 million litres of low-poor fuel oil (LPFO). The daily output therefore stands at 5.9 million litres. By implication, NNPC will only be meeting about 2.8% of local demand for PMS in the country. This is a quote from the headline story today on The Guardian. Cautious optimism over cheaper fuel as Port Harcourt refinery creates rivalry. EFCC velos Medipa as anti-graft agency detains ex-governor. Itno urges states to monetize assets to drive investment revenue. And sorry, just before we continue on the other leading stories on The Guardian, we have Port Harcourt refinery timeline underneath that leading story. Cautious optimism over cheaper fuel as Port Harcourt refinery creates rivalry. In 2015, talking about the Port Harcourt refinery timeline, in 2015, President Buhari declared that Nigeria would no longer import petroleum products by 2019, and the refinery was key to achieving this goal. In 2017, rehabilitation stalled due to poor funding and bureaucracy. In 2019, a 2020 deadline was set after failure to restore refinery to full capacity. 2020 missed deadline. 2021 federal government approved $1.5 billion for the refinery's rehabilitation with a 2023 deadline with initial operation set for 2022. In 2022, rehabilitation deadline postponed over supply chain disruptions, delays in the arrival of equipment. In 2023, missed deadline, but NNPC claims mechanical completion. And in 2024, after multiple deadlines in April, July, and August, NNPC announced operational status of refinery yesterday. Congratulations to the NNPC for this feat. Underneath that, Tinubu departs Abuja on state visit to France. Amid soaring food prices, Ayedatiwa backs Tinubu's economic policies. Some people want me to die, says Obasanjo. Private sector groans as CBN raises interest rate to 27.5%. Banks lose 53.4 billion naira to fraud in 9 months as attacks rise by 65%. And towards the masthead of The Guardian, Umba ramps up IGRO from 37.4 billion naira to 144.7 billion naira, presents 971 billion naira 2025 budget to Enugu Assembly. Underneath that, crashes recurrent expenditure further to 14% at 33.1 billion naira. Capital expenditure rises to 837.9 billion naira. Again, education gets over 33% of budget. Assembly promises early passage. That also is on the cover of The Guardian. Umba ramps up IGRO from 37.4 billion naira to 144.7 billion naira. Presents 971 billion naira 2025 budget to Enugu Assembly. And with that, we conclude the review of fund headline stories on The Guardian. For more, log on to www.guardian.ng. From The Guardian, we move over to the next paper with same headline story on the Port Harcourt refinery, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard says local fuel capacity now 860,000 barrels per day as Port Harcourt refinery rebounds. Local fuel capacity now 860,000 barrels per day as Port Harcourt refinery rebounds. Marketers await product prices from NNPCL. Reactivate Warri Kaduna refineries, Tinubu tells NNPCL. Nigerians expect to reap benefits, Lupeng. Refinery succor to economy, Petroan. Nigerians deserve transparency, Labour Party. The story runs on page 5 of Vanguard. Underneath that, we also have a picture of the Port Harcourt refinery as Kyari spreads Port Harcourt refinery. Prices of local rice, beans, bread, eggs soar in October, MBS. Let's join hands to make Nigeria a producing nation, Tinubu. GDP jobs growth at variance with reality, NECA, COP. That takes us to the story, only story about the masthead of Vanguard. CBN raises interest rates to 27.5%. With that, we conclude review of fund headline stories of Vanguard newspaper. For more, log on to the website of Vanguard, www.vanguardngr.com. From Vanguard, we move to the next paper with similar headline story on this table of leadership today, and that is Daily Sun. Daily Sun says fuel laden trucks roll out of Port Harcourt refinery. Tinubu upbeat over refinery revival once Warri Kaduna facilities reactivated. Underneath that same picture, Port Harcourt refinery, we move to the stories beneath. Ojukwu Memorial, I won't stop pushing for Kanu's release, Bianca. IPOB leader in detention because he's Igbo, Uwazuike. Ex-Governor Yahaya Bello turns self in to EFCC over alleged fraud. Call strikes out Sanwo-Olu suit against commission. British High Commissioner seeks military, civilians' efforts in tackling insecurity. CBN continues monetary policy tightening, raises interest rates amid inflation. Food prices rose in October, NBS, that is National Bureau of Statistics. Without the move to the stories gradually to the masthead of Daily Sun. TUC threatens indefinite strike in states not implementing minimum wage. Uneasy calm in Bayelsa. Beside the masthead of Daily Sun, oil producing states kick against planned payment swap at ROMAFC. Ask court to set aside consent judgment in favor of company registered after another one had executed contract. The story runs on page 20 of Daily Sun. For more, log on to the website of Daily Sun, www.thesun.ng. From Daily Sun, we move over to the next paper on our menu. Of course, let's talk this day. This day has similar story on Port Harcourt refinery. It says after prolonged delay, missed deadlines, Port Harcourt refinery begins operation. A jubilant Tinubu directs NNPC to reactivate Warri Kaduna refineries. National Oil Company started production with lowly 1.4 million litres of petrol. Kyari says president's pressure made fit possible. The closes 70% capacity reached. NMDPRA certifies fuel OK, pledges support for on-streaming of other facilities. Petrol retailers declare competition begins. Of course, such competition begins. Citing unrelenting inflationary risk, Apex Bank raises MPRO to 27.50%. And above the masthead of this day, 2025 budget, Mba presents record 971 billion naira to Enugu House of Assembly. Crashes recurrent expenditure further to 14% at 133.1 billion naira. Upscales capital expenditure to 837.9 billion naira. Again, prioritizes education with over 33% of budget. Ramps up IGRO from 37.4 billion naira to 144.7 billion naira in 2024. With that, we also conclude review of this day newspaper this Wednesday. Let's move to the next paper and also the last paper we have on our menu this Wednesday, and that is the Punch. Punchy story says alleged 110 billion naira fraud. Bello due in court today as ex-governor reports to EFCC. Alleged 110 billion naira fraud. Bello due in court today as ex-governor reports to EFCC. Ex-Kogi governor detained by anti-graft agency faces 16 counts. PDP NEC pro-Wike governor set for showdown over Damagun. I'll take that again. PDP neck, pro-Wike governor set for showdown over Damagum. Forex platform, CBN sets $100,000 minimum trade for banks. Port Harcourt refinery, 200 trucks load daily. 150,000 barrel per day LMA plant dormant. 4,449 policemen sue IG over delayed promotion. 4,449 policemen sue IG over delayed promotion. The story runs on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And part of the story says no fewer than 4,449 police officers have taken legal action against the Nigerian Police Force and the Inspector General of Police, filing a lawsuit at the National Industrial Court in Abuja over the delayed implementation of their promotions. Despite their promotions being approved by the Police Service Commission in line with its statutory powers, the officers allege that they have not been decorated with their new ranks. The case, presided over by Justice R.B. Hastrop, was adjourned on Tuesday for further hearing, with proceedings set to continue on December 18. That is part of one of the leading stories on the Punch newspaper today. 4,449 policemen sue IG over delayed promotion. Suspected drug dealer arrested, exhibits recovered in Bauchi. Unpaid pensions, retirees set to occupy finance ministry. And just beside the masthead of the Punch, interest rate hike, labour organized private sector, project higher inflation, weaker naira. With that, we conclude review of front headline stories on the Punch newspaper this Wednesday, November 27, 2024. For more, log on to the website of the Punch, www.punchng.com. And from Punch newspaper, we've come to the end of today's program, Inside Nigeria. Don't forget to join us, same station, for another fresh edition of your program. My name is Winifred Udebo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last word